Hi there, and welcome to the Smart Talk with me, your host, Simon from Audacity. Today's topic is Enough is Enough, and it's my take on how governments don't keep promises and crypto developers don't stick to their white papers or don't stick to their roadmaps, and how corporate dividends penultimately stop their workers getting pay rises while keeping all of that money sort of circulating at the top. This movement is started in the UK and it resonated with me, so I thought I'd give a little talk on it because it's so important and it relates to so many things that are going on in the real world and things that are going on in crypto and, you know, where people stand and how they view what's going on at the moment. So the Enough is Enough movement it's all about sort of working people just saying, right, okay, we've done our bit, we've worked, we do our bit, you know, we give 100% and we get nothing in return. And this kind of resonates with me because it's actually very true. The working people tend to be the ones that sort of get left out of everything in the long run. And the way this works in sort of normal society is obviously, you know, elections come and people campaign, they make promises that they don't necessarily keep, which is unfortunate, but we don't have any choice in it. They're in office for 4 years and we sort of have to go with the flow. There's an awful lot of things that are out of our control. But we have elected these officials, you know, to stand by us and to do everything that, you know, they said they were going to do in their campaign. That generally doesn't come to pass, but, you know, it's just, again, it's out of our control and there's nothing we can do about it. This works in the corporate world, again, mainly because of most companies, bar a few, have corporate dividends. And the way dividends work is if you are a shareholder, which, again, most people need to be accredited to get access to shares, so not for the working people, you get rewarded based on your shares. So if you hold shares in a company, then at the end of the year or every quarter or however they distribute their dividends, you will get a fee for holding those shares. Now, the share price is directly linked to the company's operations. It indicates how much they can borrow and what they can do sort of as a company operationally based on how much liquidity and how much cash flow they've got, which is based on, you know, what they can borrow. So it's whether dividends work or not it's a structure that for some aspects it does work and for some aspects it doesn't. But it means that a certain percentage of the company's profits go to just rewarding people that hold the shares. Now, this means that employees don't get pay rises and things may run tighter and companies may cut back on operational expenses if they have to meet a shareholder dividend, which means that everything that they're earning isn't necessarily going back into the company and it's rewarding a certain percentage of people that can afford just to hold their shares. Now, this reinforces everything in the world, sort of like we're in now, where we've got this like 1% that own an awful lot of shares, have an awful lot of money. So the hedge funds, the big investors, the big banks, the investment banks, all of these companies have an awful lot of money at their disposal. They all invest in the stock market. It keeps the stock market relatively high and keeps this corporate dividend structure going. And it saps an awful lot of the money out of what companies are earning and puts it back into the shareholders' hands, which, again, you know, it's a good or a bad thing. Now, don't get me wrong, pension funds and other things are all tied to stock investments, which means that, you know, those dividends get paid into pension pots and those dividends get paid into companies, but it really shouldn't work like this. It just shouldn't. We shouldn't be based on sort of artificially inflated or liquidity inflated stock prices to draw a pension at the end of the year. And the system's pretty broke, in my opinion. And I can relate this to the crypto market as well, when like enough is enough, because we've gone through 2021 and we've gone through 2020 when, you know, we had boom and bust cycles, but more to the point, these years highlighted for me where people put a lot of faith in teams and a lot of faith in team promises, which sort of resonate with campaign promises to me that have never been achieved. And where do we draw the line? And when is enough enough? So when I look at investments that I've made personally, I mean, I made investments into Strong and it was great. I didn't take any profits from it. It was an investment that was supposed to be long term. But again, the team made campaign promises, i.e. promises to their, users, or in this case, investors, or however you want to deem it. And then they reneged on those promises, and they actually changed and moved the goalposts, which actually hurt us. But again, the same as sort of corporate and governmental structures, the users are sort of left hanging, and there is no real accountability. And it's all from a promise from a development team, because as I said in my last video, sort of developers are the gatekeepers to decentralization. So if the developers of the protocol or the developers of the investment that you've made renege on those promises and move the goalposts and constantly pivot and constantly change away from the model that was originally intended, then it isn't what it started out to be, and it isn't what you personally envisioned when you made your investment. And we can all say what to look for in teams, what to expect from the teams that you're looking for. And again, it's the same as campaign promises. Teams can make all sorts of promises, and you can look for those promises, but it isn't a guarantee that they're going to deliver on those promises. And it's such a shame that crypto has become this hodgepodge of failed experiments, all at the expense of users. And it's such a shame that everything that they said they were going to do and they haven't actually achieved has moved, and it's pivoted, and no one really knows where they stand. And people who are invested are heavily invested or lightly invested, but they've put what they can afford to put in there, or they've put too much in there, or they've put what they can't afford to lose in there. And now they're sort of hanging on to this desperate hope that teams are actually going to come around and deliver, the same as companies and the same as governments and the same as, okay, we'll stick by, we'll see what happens. It may be next year, or it may be the year after, or I'm confident that they're going to deliver on these promises. And it's not. Enough is enough. The same as corporate dividends. The developers and the teams, if they're collecting fees, if they're collecting subscriptions, if they are doing whatever, are still receiving your funds, and they are still paying themselves well. They are still doing the things that they do. They're still mass marketing in high-end venues, or they're still pushing high-end sort of profiles, and they've got this fake it till you make it attitude. But you're left literally hanging at the end of your computer, just watching your investment either go down, or nothing really happening with your investment, or in the case of my investment into Strong, my investment completely disappearing. And that's because the team didn't have the foresight to look and to say, okay, we're going to get up to 500,000 or 600,000 nodes. How are we actually going to cap these emissions? Because nothing that we do can actually support these emissions. Even if we launch our own chain, we're still going to have really high emissions for what we need on fees for when the project comes in, and it's not going to serve us well in the future. But instead of having this slow cycle down, or this slow reduction, or this constant line of communication, they just cut it. They just got rid. And from my point of view, enough is enough of that. And I want to set a precedent of how a team comes to market and how a team delivers the product that they say they're going to deliver. Because I am sick of, the company fat cats who hold all the shares, who hold all the control, being rewarded, and the users not being involved and not having a say and not being rewarded. So the same as the enough is enough movement in the UK, for me personally, enough is enough in the crypto market as well. I want to see teams actually delivering on their promise. I want to see teams building, constantly communicating, and constantly fighting for their users. It's what we intend to do at Audacity, and it's what I will personally look for in any future investments that I make. And I will be much more guarded. So because of the past 2-3 years. And I understand that with our users as well. Our users are sensible and they are guarded. And I implore that. And I thank sensibility. And I thank the fact that our users are doing that. So when you look at your next project, have a look at everything. If it doesn't meet that enough is enough criteria, if you don't see who you're investing in, and if you don't see that they've delivered on promises, and if you don't see that, if it is just a pipe dream, then just say no. And just sit on the sidelines and do not be rash. But if the team is actually delivering what they say they're going to deliver, if they are in constant communication, if they have kept promises, if they have met deadlines, if they are interacting with their users, if they are actually trying their best, then it's something that you can look at and engage in and learn for yourself. But Don't just look at a market. Don't just look at a green thing. Don't just look for the whole picture. Actually get on board with what they are trying to achieve and what they want to achieve. See how they launched. See if it was ethical. See if it was transparent. Then once you've done that, and once all those enough is enough boxes are ticked, then by all means have a more serious look at it. But make sure that you do those processes. Thank you very much for listening. So as always, if you like the content, please subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next show.